If you can select one absolute chief aim in life for which you are passionate with an almost obsessive zeal, that's the greatest guarantee we receive of getting where you want to go.
If you've ever wanted your wealthiest, happiest, and most abundant new year ever, then do we have the Secrets of Self-Mastery show for you. Today I'll be talking with Mitch Horowitz, a leader in the New Thought movement, PEN Award-winning historian, the author of The Miracle Club and the Napoleon Success Course series, which includes The Miracle of a Definite Chief Aim, One Simple Idea, and his latest, Secrets of Self-Mastery. So welcome back to the show, Mitch. Are you ready to shine?
Yes, sir. Delighted to be here. Thank you.
Oh, glad to have you here in the mighty. Woohoo! So before we dive right into things, how did Napoleon Hill help you to become a millionaire as a writer?
2013 was a turning point for me because it was the first year that I read Think and Grow Rich with a sense of total commitment.
Yeah.
Prior to that, I had read the book in a lackadaisical manner. I dipped in and out. I skimmed it. I cherry-picked among exercises that I thought I needed. I ignored things that I thought I already had done. I had been a veteran reader and writer and publisher of metaphysical literature for many years. And I had the attitude that I suspect many people do, that Think and Grow Rich was kind of metaphysics with training wheels, and that there were certain things I had already done. I had a been there, done that attitude. And I had a change of heart because I saw there were changes occurring in the publishing industry that made me feel that a career that at one time had seemed very familiar, very comfortable to me, could frankly be endangered, could be threatened in the medium term or even short term future. And I thought to myself, I may be facing a time in life where I'll need to earn my living strictly from my writing, my presenting, my narrating, and so forth. And I made a decision to return to Think and Grow Rich, but this time to do all of its exercises as though my life depended upon it. And I went back into that book and I treated it like a program to which I would be dedicated with absolute passion and meticulousness. I did every exercise. I read every page. I reread chapters. I went over it with exquisite care, and things really began to happen for me after that. I began to grow even more well-established as a writer, as a speaker, as a narrator. I began to attract money, contracts, a larger audience. And by the way, I came away from that experience with a heartfelt conviction, which is that Think and Grow Rich will work. It will work, but only if you dedicate yourself to it, holding absolutely nothing back, only if you dedicate yourself to it. Zen Buddhism calls it beginner's mind. We have to enter Think and Grow Rich with beginner's mind. And this is true even if you've read the book multiple times. I encourage people for the new year to get a fresh of the book, start all over again, pick out any number of good copies that are out there of the original 1937 text, and do it with beginner's mind as if you've never encountered it before. And I think you'll have wonderful experiences springing from that.
This concept of like your life depends on it, I think can change everything. And I'm wondering early on, so practice number one was you reread the book and followed each exercise like your life depended on it. Was there one early exercise or piece that you dove into like you've never done before?
Yes, and that was the selection of a definite chief aim. I simply cannot overstate the significance and the imperative of having one definite, absolute chief aim in life. And I realized that people have difficulty with that because life places multiple demands on us. We're spouses, we're workers, we're artists, we're caregivers, we're parents, we're business people, we're homemakers. We have all kinds of things that life requires from us. I'm in the same position. I have 2 kids. For many years, I held down a corporate job in publishing. I have people in my life who depend upon me, who need me to step up and do certain things. So very often we come to this crossroads of selecting a definite chief aim, and we're frankly wishy-washy about it. We generalize. We say to ourselves, well, there's so many things I want in life. I want to travel. I want to be a good spouse. I need to take care of an elderly parent, whatever it may be. And all those things are very important. But I always say to people that one well-selected aim can cover a great many bases. It doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to be able to dedicate the personal energy to everything in your life. There may be sacrifices. There may be things that you deprioritize. But one well-selected aim can cover many, many, many bases. It can give you resources, for example, that help you support the people in your life who you love, that help you support a household or an educational program or whatever it is that you want to fulfill or that is being asked of you. But if you look upon people you regard as heroes, whoever they are, whether they're from the world of business, politics, you name it, they were known for one absolute aim. You think of Bruce Lee. Who was he? He was a masterful martial artist on the screen. You think of Helen Keller. Who was she? Well, she was a person who experienced physical challenges and disabilities, but who extolled the idea of self-potential. Who was Winston Churchill? Well, he defeated fascism. Who was Nelson Mandela? Well, he brought justice and democracy to South Africa, inspired people around the world. I don't necessarily know what Nelson Mandela was like as a parent. I don't necessarily know what Helen Keller was like as a sibling. I can only imagine that Steve Jobs was not an easy guy to live with, but he was a great visionary, and that's what people take from his life. So it's a tough bargain. It's a tough bargain that life strikes with us, but it's a real bargain, and it's a bargain with verity, that if you can select one absolute chief aim in life for which you are passionate with an almost obsessive zeal, that's the greatest guarantee we receive of getting where you want to go. It really is. It's the closest thing that life grants us to a so-called magic elixir.
Woohoo! I have my 6 words. I couldn't get it down to 1 or 2 words. Raise people's vibration, elevate consciousness, shift humanity. That's what I call to shine bright. That's the mission that I'm on. When we talk about missions, how important, when we're choosing our definite chief aim, is it to starkly acknowledge what you really, truly want?
That's a wonderful question. A lot of people also have difficulty with that step. It sounds so simple, choose a definite chief aim, because we walk around thinking that we know what we want. But very often that kind of self-knowledge can also be deceptive, because we repeat things to us by rote over many, many years, and we rarely examine them. We rarely ask ourselves, do I want that, or do I just feel that that internally makes me look good or feel good or will make me look good to peer groups or something? When asking the question of what you really want, you may come face to face with some real conflicts and difficulties. The first is that some people are worried that their selection of an aim may make them feel selfish, may make them seem materialistic, may make them look bad in the eyes of others. We tend to almost want to candy coat our aims as if to say, well, I need to add some moralistic window dressing to what I want to accomplish in order for it to sound spiritual, in order for it to sound good. And that can be a trap, because if we're not being honest with ourselves, we're not really enacting an authentic, definite aim. I would also add that a definite aim, it should be ethical. I don't throw questions of morals and ethics out the window. Living with a code of honor, living with a code of nobility, living with a code of ethics and reciprocity, I believe is uniquely and decisively important, because if you are indifferent or amoral towards others, my contention is you'll never really be free from tension, self-doubt, threat, fear. You'll be touchy, you'll be skittish. You'll always be like a cat on a high wire, always suspecting that something negative is going to befall you. That's the price you pay for indifference toward others, among other things. And another facet of an aim is, and this gets controversial, but I have to stand by it, it must be realistic. Otherwise, it's a pipe dream. Otherwise, it's escapism. It must be something that you can begin to enact in however small a way right away. I just don't want this to be an excuse for procrastination, pipe dreams, escapism, entertainment. An aim is something that should be absolutely serious, even if it may seem far away, even if it may seem to be on the outer fringes of what's possible. I will be the first person to have your back, to applaud you, to stand by you, if you can demonstrate to me that you can move toward it in however small a way. I just want to know that the individual is taking account of factors like age, geography, skills, education. None of those things are barriers. But we have to have perspective on our lives and ask, am I able to acquire the skills that will allow me to become whatever it is you wish to become? And if you can answer that question in the affirmative, then you have a solid, definite chief aim. But a definite chief aim is not escapism.
I just came up with an acronym, which is actually the acronym for our book that's coming out, which is Automatic Writing Experience, AWE, and here, actionable with energy.
Yes,
it
beautiful.
has to be actionable. It has to be the strongest energy you can bring to it.
That's absolutely right. And one also has to remember that your definite chief aim can be private. You don't have to share it with other people necessarily. And the reason for that is it's not something that should be subject to peer pressure. It's not something that should be subject to the offhanded opinions of other people. Napoleon Hill called opinions the cheapest commodities on earth. Everybody's got them in abundance, but they're not expert advice, they're not factual, and they're not necessarily reliable. You should, of course, seek out educative opportunities. You should seek out the counsel of a support group or a mastermind group or so forth. And there may be times where you need to pay for these educational opportunities. It's completely valid to pay a life coach, to pay a career counselor, to enroll in an online course. All of those things are healthful and positive. Those are ways of getting factual, productive information. But you're not being asked to go around and wave your flag and hold your definite chief aim out there for the approval or disapproval of whomever happens to be drifting through your life at a given moment, even if it's someone you're close to. So throw peer pressure out the window. I want people to feel unembarrassed. I want them to be ethical. I want them to think in terms of reciprocity. I believe profoundly in that. But I don't want them to subject their wishes to peer pressure. It's yours. It's exquisitely private. It's your property. It's your intimacy. It's your wish. And I don't ever want anybody to sacrifice that.
So if let's look at some early steps here that we can take. First off, there's a very interesting step. What's the power of maybe?
That was from the philosophy of William James, the great American psychologist who is a true intellectual hero to me. James made the point that we go through life all the time asking ourselves if maybe something is possible and deciding to side with the maybe. Because he said there's all kinds of instances in life where if you don't decide that something is possible, if you don't err on the side of the affirmative, if you don't err on the side of the maybe, you'll never attempt things. And you may be in situations where life absolutely requires you to attempt something. It may be a matter of recovery. It may be a matter of taking some sort of physical risk. It may be a matter of taking a risk on a piece of work, a piece of research, what have you. James said that life almost always comes down to maybe, and you have to throw yourself on the side of the maybe if you're going to get anywhere. If you stand still, you've assured failure.
Very good. And then going from there, another early step. Napoleon Hill, what does he mean? Resolve to throw off the influences of any unfortunate environment and to build your own life to order.
Hill felt very strongly, as many New Thought writers did, that you have to get away from people who make you feel afraid, away from people who are hostile towards you, away from people who would block or run down your aims. This is why he placed so much stock in a mastermind group rather than just soliciting opinions from people. And he felt very, very strongly that if you find yourself in a situation in which you're around people who appeal to your worst instincts or who lure you into gossip or who lure you into forms of escapism or entertainment that are just going to drain away your life, basically, you really have to get away from those influences. If somebody is tormenting you, if somebody's putting you down, if you're getting backhanded compliments, if somebody is behaving with passive aggression towards you, whatever it may be, you need to really ask yourself, why am I here? I don't need to remain in proximity to this person. I used to have a psychology professor in college who I loved. He taught this enormous lecture hall class in Psychology 101. And anytime he would announce some sort of a test or a midterm paper or something, and the students would let out a collective groan, he would always say in this delightful way, you know, you don't have to be here. And everybody would sort of dart around looking at one another uncomfortably. And he meant it. He meant it. You know, you don't have to be taking this class. You may not want to experience the consequences of not taking this class. You may not want to experience the consequences of leaving the class midterm, but always remember, you do have an authentic choice. And I think that single line, you don't have to be here, is one of the great treasures I probably took from 5 years of higher education.
Wow, and very, very good. So from you don't have to be here, we've got a definite chief aim. We're putting ourselves inwardly and outwardly in a different environment that perhaps supports us better. What's the next step that we would take on this journey?
The next step, I think, would be making the determination what skills or what education or what circumstances you needed to place yourself in to begin moving in the direction of your aim. My program, like yours, is action with energy, action with energy. Even if mind is the ultimate arbiter of reality, and I personally do believe that mind is the ultimate arbiter of reality, we still live in the world of Caesar. We still live in a physical sphere where if I bang my toe against a piece of furniture, I will experience pain. We can have a discussion as to whether that pain is ultimately based in mind. And I will come down on the transcendental side of that discussion ultimately. But at 3:00 on Tuesday afternoon, I need to go tape up my toe. That is the physical reality I live under. That is the perspective that I experience. And I do believe that the individual needs to be taking affirmative action, however small at first, in the direction of his or her aim. I think it's absolutely vital. So a plan of action, a real plan of action, not daydreaming, but concrete steps, it's absolutely vital, absolutely vital.
Thank you. I want to go to the next step, but since we're talking about taping things up, the turning point in the lives of those who succeed, according to Napoleon Hill, usually comes at the moment of some crisis, like banging that toe, through which they are introduced to their other selves.
You know, there are times in life where unless we face a crisis, we simply will not move forward. And sometimes that crisis can come in the form of legitimate criticism from other people. The Persian poet Rumi said, pray for a tough instructor. A tough instructor can come in all kinds of ways. I've had people criticize me and put me down, sometimes on social media, sometimes in book reviews. And I may have felt that that person was coming from a place of bad will, but nonetheless, they did expose to me areas that could be considered chinks in the armor, so to speak, that could be considered weak spots, that could be considered soft flanks or what have you. And I have to say, in the long run, I have benefited more from people who sought to torment me than I have from people who patted me on the back. That doesn't mean that I want to go make, plans to rent a summer share with the people who have tormented me, but they have been a help to me.
I call them when somebody comes into my life, or maybe comes in several times or repeatedly. I'll tell Jessica, I'll say, the teacher is calling.
Sometimes you've paid your tuition with a given teacher and it's time to move on. I've known situations where people have behaved in very destructive or hostile ways, and yet they have been teachers. They have helped me. But at the same time, you have to graduate, and it may be time to move on from that person. Don't linger in the ruins either. Learn from it, but don't linger.
With that said, let's do an imaginary or real exercise. You have in the book a 10-day challenge, but I'm going to call it here the New Year Miracle Challenge, a challenge for the new year. And maybe you can take us through these 6 key steps so that we can make thought real.
I talk about this 10-day miracle challenge in the book, and I'm delighted for Inspire Nation listeners to take on this challenge. In fact, I'll do it with you. The day that the show airs, Michael, I will start doing this exercise with you and with the Inspire Nation viewers. It's not necessarily an exercise that relates directly to your definite chief aim. Your definite chief aim is the engine of your whole life. But there are times in life where we find ourselves in great need of something. And this exercise is designed to solve immediate, urgent, and short-term problems. Hence, it lasts for 10 days. So first, very simply, just get in touch with something that you really, truly, passionately want in life, something that you need, something that's concrete, that's real, that's measurable, whatever it may be. You may need to bring something in your life. You may need to expunge something from your life. You may need the solution to a financial problem, whatever it is. Just think of something that's concrete and real. And I invite you to be very, very explicit about it, very hardcore about it. There's no limits here. This is short term, but I want you to be completely real about something that is vital to your life. The second is you write down your aim. Just very, very plain. It should be something you can boil down to a simple sentence. I ask you not to do it on a computer, on a laptop, on a tablet, but do it with pen and paper. Do it with pen and paper. I really do believe in writing things down because, first of all, the very tactile act of writing something down is the first step, however small, of bringing the thing itself into actuality. It seems like such a small step, but I really do believe it's vital. Feeling the weight of that pen or pencil in your hand, making an impression on the paper, having something on the paper in front of you. I know it seems small, but it really is the first concrete step into actualizing the thing itself. So write it down, and it should be as easily expressible as I want to start exercising every day or whatever it may be. And don't worry, don't get hung up. Should I state it in past tense, future tense? Don't worry. State it honestly. The only requirement is just stark honesty. Don't get hung up on the wording. Just make it very plain, simple, conversational. Okay, so number 3, draw up a diagram of 10 boxes. Just 10 boxes. That's all. You are going to mark off 1 box a day for a period of 10 days. It's that simple. That's number 4. Number 5 is during this period of 10 days, each of the 10 days, each time you mark off one of these 10 boxes, make it a day in which you have dedicated yourself completely to the realization of this wished for thing. Pray, affirm, visualize, meditate, act, learn, educate yourself. Do everything possible from every possible perspective to dwell upon the furtherance and the realization of this needed thing. Whatever your set of practices are, you don't have to change them. You don't have to adopt new practices. Just whatever your set of practices are, use them with great vigor for each of the 10 days and mark off the box. And again, don't get hung up if you discover that it's 11 o'clock at night and you haven't thought about or acted upon your aim all day. Don't worry about it. This isn't one of these exercises where if you fall off, you have to start all over. I don't believe in that. We are all going to get distracted. We all have needs and demands, and there are unexpected things that happen throughout life all the time. This is not an exercise that's designed to be punitive. If you forget for many hours your aim, don't sweat it. Don't sweat it. When you remember it, if it's 11 p.m. and you're about to go to sleep, say a prayer, go into a meditation, visualize, journal, whatever you want to do. Just make sure every day you've done something affirmatively to move towards this aim. That's step 5. Step 6, and this is the linchpin to everything. This is the whole purpose of this exercise. Watch very, very carefully for the arrival of the wished for thing. I cannot state that plainly enough because my contention is that things that reach us, that fill some very deep-seated need, very often reach us in ways that can disguise the arrival of the wished for thing. Mm-hmm. First of all, when you wish for something, it will almost always enter your life through some sort of established channel. Things reach our lives through channels and byways that have already been set down. If you need a new house, for example, well, the house is not just going to show up like the beanstalk outside of Jack's window. The house is going to reach you overwhelmingly through some sort of established channel, a friend, a tip, a surprise, an advertisement, a stranger giving you some information, a realtor giving you some, whatever it may be. There's some sort of established channel through which this thing is likely to reach you. And sometimes because something reaches us in ways that seem ordinary, we are likely to discount it. We make the mistake of discounting things sometimes because they seem routine, familiar, domesticated, ordinary. That's one of the reasons why I ask you, watch very, very carefully for the arrival of the wished for thing. It may come during the 10 days. It may come following the 10 days. But I just ask you to watch with exquisite care and don't discount any possibilities. And that leads me to the second point of why I request this vigilance. Yeah. The second point is, in addition to reaching us through established channels, sometimes things can reach us, and quite often they do, in a form that is very different from what we might have imagined. We all have these mind's eye pictures of delivery, how it will be delivered, the means by which it will be delivered, the dimensions of what will be delivered. Sometimes the thing itself that you need, the very thing that you need, will reach you and will satisfy your deepest longing, will satisfy an urgently felt need, but it will reach you in ways that are very, very different from what you have imagined. And that's another way in which we can sometimes discount the very, very thing that we're looking for. My contention is that 10 days is a sufficient enough time so that we can address a short-term need, we can maintain mental focus. I don't think there's any of us who can't maintain focus for a period of 10 days. I don't think that's asking too much of the individual. And it keeps us focused in such a way that we can be keenly alert for the arrival of things that we might otherwise dismiss. I can't emphasize how important this is. There are many myths in religion, in different spiritual cultures, in different facets of mythology, in which holy beings, an angel or a genie, comes into someone's lives disguised as a stranger. And the person who is kind to the stranger, the person who is hospitable to the stranger, receives incredible rewards. Now, those stories have multiple layers of meaning, but among the layers, I believe, is that we sometimes overlook the arrival of what we want because it doesn't represent our mind's eye image of how it should arrive. Watch very, very carefully, and gotta let go of your prejudices. Gotta let go of your prejudices. It might sound simple, and I've given it this kind of sprightly title of the 10-Day Miracle Challenge, but it could also put you face to face with availing yourself of a solution, something that could be really helpful, that goes outside of your accepted menu of options. And so the sixth step is to watch very, very closely and dismiss nothing out of hand. And I tell you, the results, in my experience, can be extraordinary.
So I wonder if we can dive into the subconscious briefly. We'll go with Maxwell Maltz, PsychoCybernetics, self-image, and how we can, he has 3 steps, not for the faint of heart, for reprogramming our subconscious.
You will only do this program if you want it with everything in you, and you will only receive benefits from this program if you do it as though your life depends upon it. It's all in the doing. It's all in the doing. How passionately are you dedicated? If you're passionately dedicated, the PsychoCybernetics program will net real and concrete results, but it will yield nothing if it's only done in a lackadaisical way. Maltz himself felt that you would start to see results after 21 days. Yeah. You didn't necessarily stop after 21 days, but he felt in his experience, after about 21 days, you start to see results. I mean, that's the period of about 3 weeks. The PsychoCybernetics program, in short, was basically to hold 2 meditation sessions per day. One, just a standard meditation of just sitting for about a half hour a day. Mm-hmm. The second was another half hour of self-guided, internally guided meditation in which you see yourself performing tasks, working, going out into the world, relating to people from a position of absolute self-strength, absolute maturity, absolute nobility, absolute dignity, absolute poise, ease, savoir-faire. See yourself as strongly as possible and use this guided half-hour meditation as a complement to the first every day. And then the third step and component is to affirm, journal, visualize, read inspirational literature, read aphorisms every single day that strengthens your psyche, strengthens yourself. A good portion of his book, PsychoCybernetics, is given over to these very kinds of stories and aphorisms. And when you look at this program that I've just laid out, you could say to yourself, gee, that sounds simple. Gee, that sounds too easy to work. I already meditate. It's not simple. It's not simple because it requires absolute daily dedication. And if anybody who meditates knows, life does everything possible to deprive us of inner quietude, to deprive us of meditative opportunities. If you set aside a half hour every day to meditate, whatever your practice, whether it's TM, whether it's Zazen, whether it's something else, you know that it can be very, very difficult, let's be honest, to really live up to that half hour each day. Life does everything to take that from us. Now we're going to double it. We're going to double it. And we're going to add to it affirmations, inspirational reading, journaling, visualizing, etc. It's not asking too much of the individual, and yet it is asking a lot. Because we talk about meditating more than we meditate. We talk about positive visualizing more than we positively visualize. Let's face it, we talk about tithing more than we tithe. This is a program you really must stick with. It's a very exciting program. It's a very powerful program. It speaks to a lot of people. I mean, how often do you hear Salvador Dali, Nancy Reagan, and Jane Fonda in the same sentence? No, not too often. Those were his fans, along with a great many athletes. Maltz's book was written in 1960, and it's still read today, and it's attained posterity because it really has something.
Ralph Waldo Emerson, in his essay Wealth, he says that the individual is born to be rich, and then he gives 3 steps to earning wealth. What can you tell us about this?
First of all, we all have some subsistence need that we have to fulfill, and Emerson was sensitive to that. We have to put food on the table. We have to have shelter. We have to have a reasonable household, reasonable nutrition, reasonable health care. But second to that, if you can achieve that, you can move into the next level, which is filling some fundamental need for other people, identifying some urgent, fundamental, vital, deeply felt need and beginning to fill that for other people. And that is a very creative process, and a process that requires tremendous degree of research and understanding and information to perceive what that need is. And third and finally, Emerson's step towards wealth was to commit to spending your money only on things that build your own sense of power, build your own sense of productivity, build your own capacity toward expansion. But he said, look, what is a life that's only given over to satisfying the same animal sensations over and over and over? We all have a craving for pleasures. But he said, once you've satisfied certain things, how many times over and over and over do you want to satisfy those same animal sensations or animal pleasures? He said, the person who's powerful, the person who's ultimately wealthy, is the individual who, as much as possible, restricts his or her spending, anything that goes outside its subsistence level spending, which I realize is a very grave matter for many people, and I regard that with deep seriousness. But he said, if you've been able to satisfy subsistence level necessities in life, you should thereafter only spend your money on things that build your power. And that could be any number of things, but they have to be honestly applicable to the cause of self-expansion, to the cause of self-expansion. And when you begin to evaluate your purchases on those lines, that can be a very meaningful and profoundly self-probing set of questions that you get put in front of. And I've been working really closely with that principle this month, and it's been very, very interesting for me. And sometimes I do absolutely give in
Mm.
to the so-called animal sensations. I go out and have a nice meal, and, I drink and I do all kinds of things. And the truth is, sometimes that stuff is necessary because sometimes it has to do with maintaining social ties that are very important, very nourishing. Sometimes we do need recreation, absolutely necessary. None of us, very few of us, are going to live a monastic existence. So that has its place. But I really, really, truly ask myself, Michael, is this thing, is this purchase, is this experience going to build my sense of self-expansion, or is it just frittering it away? And that's a huge, huge question, and a noble question, and a worthy question. And sometimes the answer is yes, and sometimes the answer is no. But that's the litmus test that Emerson asked us to apply.
Woohoo! So where can people go to get the secrets of self-mastery and to find out more, Mitch?
Well, Secrets of Self-Mastery goes on sale January 21st in both physical form, digital form, and audio form. If you would like to pre-order it, you can pre-order it at Amazon or pretty much any place that books are sold. Both the Kindle version and the physical version can be pre-ordered on Amazon. I'm very proud of the book. It's a very practical book. It's a very hands-on book. I focus on and expand on many of the kinds of themes that you and I have been talking about over the course of this hour. And I explore ideas that I hope will fill people with a kind of joy, because these are exercises that they're simple, they're clear, they're practical. They require one thing, which is passion. If you bring passion to the table and you do these exercises and you imbibe these ideas, I really, really do believe you will experience wonderful positive change. And I make this promise to the Inspire Nation family. When this show goes live, I will be doing the 10-day mental challenge with you. We will be doing this as a community. We will be doing it together. And I really look forward to that.
Woohoo! Any last words of wisdom before maybe we do just the tiniest bit of meditation? We've gone over, and I am so thrilled that we went over, Mitch, because this has been another knock it out of the park one you've done.
Oh, thank you, man. I do have one last bit of wisdom that I want to share. It comes in the form of an Arab proverb, an old Arab proverb, and I think it speaks to the efficacy of every self-help program. The way bread smells depends on how hungry you are. The way bread smells depends on how hungry you are. If you are starved for change, then all of the things that we've been talking about, Emile Coué, PsychoCybernetics, the 10-day miracle challenge, the selection of a definite chief aim, these things will bring wonderful, wonderful, positive, concrete changes into your life. The turnkey is how hungry you are. And I really want to leave everybody with that proverb for the new year.
Woohoo! Do you have time for a very, very brief mantra, meditation, sentence, anything?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let's just close our eyes for a moment. We'll get centered. Take a few deep breaths.
If you're driving down the road, do this later.
Right, please. I invite you to ask yourself what you need in your life right now, in the here and now, that will aid your self-expansion, that will aid the progress of your definite chief aim in life. It can be anything, large or small, material or psychological, whatever it may be. Think of something that you need right now in your life, in the here and now, that will aid your sense of self-expansion, that will aid your personal progress in the direction of your definite chief aim. And as you think of this needed thing, it may come into your mind right now, it may come into your mind on reflection later, But as you think of this needed thing, ask yourself whether that may be the aim that you would like to apply to the 10-day miracle challenge, a challenge that all of us will be doing together in the new year, and a challenge in which I invite you with a great sense of hopeful expectancy. And I look forward to the results that we can all share together. And let us open our eyes.
Woohoo! Thank you so much, Mitch. This has been
Pleasure.
Awesome again. And you and I share the same philosophy of the kitchen sink, and you shared the kitchen sink with us today.
A great pleasure. I always love hearing from your listeners, and I'm eager to hear from people in 2020 as to what the 10-day miracle challenge availed for them.
I hope you're as inspired as I am to take the 10-day miracle challenge. I'll be taking it myself. Be sure if you take it to let us know below. Write your comments below. Let us know about your challenge and let us know how it goes. You can check out more interviews here. Subscribe below. Click on the bell icon to be notified of upcoming shows. And remember, you're not just our audience, you are family. So we would love to hear from you. Put your comments below. Let us know your thoughts. And above and beyond all else, of course, shine bright. Love you guys.